Okay, good morning everyone, and thank you for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning as we are studying together Perashat Behukotay. And we know that the word Behukotay, the word hok, means something that's not rational. Okay, we have mitzvot that make sense and we have mitzvot that don't make so much sense to us. And a chok is a mitzvah that's not so rational. And what exactly does the Perashah mean when it says, Im Behukotay telechu? God says, if you will go in my ways. Which specific chok is it referring to? And Rashi says, if I ask you which mitzvah is a chok, you would say paraduma, the red heifer. You would say shatnez, right? Look what Rashi says. Rashi says, you know what it means, a chok? To learn Torah. That's what it means. The Torah is telling us that if you want geshem, if you want bracha, which we all want. Geshem doesn't only mean rain. So even if you're not a farmer, okay, you still want Geshem, because Geshem comes from the word Gashmiyut. We want physical blessings. We want blessings. And if we want blessings, we have to be, says Rashi, we have to be Amel BaTorah. We got to work hard on the Torah. The question is, why is that a chok? I wouldn't call it a chok. You know what a chok is? Chok, something that doesn't make so much sense. Is Torah not rational? I think it's very logical that you need to learn. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avot, Lo Ama'aretz Hasid. If you're an Ama'aretz, you'll never be able to be pious. You'll never be educated. Education is very important. Look how much money is being spent on education. And today, everyone knows that if you educate the kids in a certain way, then the future of the country will be a certain way. That's why you have each side in politics is pushing their way. What should we teach kids? What we shouldn't teach kids on the board of ed. We should use certain words in classrooms. We shouldn't use certain words in classrooms because education is very important. And I think we all value education as Jewish parents. We give our children Jewish education. We spend a lot of money. You can send your kid for free to public school. Okay, you could save 30, 40K times however many kids. It's a lot of money. Okay, times that by 12 years. You know how many millions. Just again, if you have 4 kids, you're putting every year $160,000 on tuition. Times 12 years, that's more than $1 million, my friends. You could save all that money and send it to public school, but we don't do it. Why? Because we value Torah education. Is it something that's a chok? Are we spending $1 million on something that's irrational? No. We all realize how important it is to educate our children with our laws, with our values, with our culture, with our tradition, with our customs. And therefore, if that's the case, if education is logical, why is the Torah calling it a chok? Why does it say Behukotay telechu? If you will go in my chukim, which again has a connotation of not rational. Also, what does that mean? Liyot amelim baTorah. What is that? How does that differ? To be amel, to toil, as opposed to learning Torah. What does that mean? What does it look like? Are we amel right now in this class? What is amelut? Says the Be'er Yosef, Rav Yosef Tzvi Salant, a book that we're quoting a lot often recently, takes us to the famous Gemara, I believe it's Masechet Shabbat, page 87, 88, that when God gave us the Torah, the Pasuk says, Vayityatevu betachtit ahar, that the Jewish people stood at the foot of the mountain. However, the Midrash doesn't read things loosely. The Midrash reads things literally. Literally, it sounds like they stood under the mountain. Tahtit. What does that mean, under the mountain? So the Midrash comes along and says, Kafalehem har kegigit. You know what it's telling you? That God raised the mountain over their heads. Allegorically, Hashem raised the mountain, and He said, if you accept the Torah, great, and if not, I drop it right here on you right now. And the Jewish people were forced to accept the Torah. And obviously the question is, why did Hashem have to force us? Didn't we willingly say, Na'aseh v'nishma? Didn't we already said I do? Imagine the guy comes to the wedding. He's there under the chuppah, and he says to the girl, Hare'at mekudeshet li, will you marry me with this ring? Or will you be betrothed to me? and he opens his jacket, he says, "You see this gun? If you say no, this gun's waiting for you." Right? You don't have to do that, mister. She already said yes. She already agreed to get married. You already bought the apartment. You have the furniture ready. You have the whole wedding is in order. You didn't have to force us, God. We said na'aseh v'nishma. So what was the forcing for? Why kafale ma'atigigit? If you don't accept it, I kill you right here, right now. The answer is, says the Tosafot, that was for the Torah shebichtav. That was for the written Torah. The written Torah we were willing to accept. But the oral Torah, we never said na'aseh v'nishma. We had to be forced, we had to be coerced to accept the Torah She'Ba'al Peh. And even that, we eventually accepted that willingly in the times of Purim, where we listened to the words of Mordechai with no questions. Mordechai was the rabbi. He's in a way the Torah She'Ba'al Peh. He's the oral tradition that he represents. And the answer does not suffice. Because again, what are we saying till now? We said that the Jewish people were happy to accept a written book, but they weren't willing to accept the oral book. But the truth is, we all know already that you can't have one without the other. The two books go hand in hand. There's no mitzvah that you could read that makes any sense without the oral book, without the Torah She'Ba'al Peh explaining it. Matter of fact, we spoke about the Tzedukim. The Tzedukim believed that the Torah should be understood literally. It says 40, it means 40, not 39. It says put it in between your eyes, it means right here, not here. It says see it, it means put it up on the wall, not wear it so you could see it during the day. That's how they took everything literally at face value. We don't endorse that. We don't believe what the Tzedukim held. We know you need a commentary. Every book needs another book that explains it. So what kind of business is this that we were ready to accept the written book, the Torah Shebichtav, but we weren't ready to accept the Torah She'Ba'al Peh? Says Be'er Yosef, Rav Yosef Tzvi Salant, of course the Jewish people, my friends, wanted to accept the Torah. Of course they wanted both Torahs. They wanted Torah Shebichtav, they wanted Torah She'Ba'al Peh. You need the details, or else I don't know what color should my tefillin be. Doesn't say it. Of course I need the elaboration. Of course I need the oral book. Of course I need the details. But I want you to give it to me as easy as you gave me the written book. Let's be honest. What's easier to learn, my friends? Torah Shebichtav or Torah She'Ba'al Peh? What's easier to learn? Chumash or Gemara? Chumash is much easier. It's all written out for you. Of course, you could learn Gemara in a very intense way with commentaries and opening up and breaking your head. But the Torah Shebichtav is straightforward. It says this. What gets complicated? The Torah She'Ba'al Peh, the Gemara, the Midrashim, the Mishnayot. Where all of a sudden now, I have to start thinking, wait 1 second. It says, in the Pasuk, Beshoch Becha Kumecha. But what does that mean? Does it mean when you're sleeping? Does it mean the position that you should be in? Now the Gemara makes everything complicated. The Jewish people they were all ready to accept the Torah Shebichtav and the Torah She'Ba'al Peh if you make it simple. Give me simple halacha bullets. You have to eat this. You can't do that. You have to dress like this. You got on the Shabbat, halacha. Halacha, what's halacha? It's nice, bottom line, easy. They wanted it easy. That's what the Jewish people wanted. Of course, they knew you needed the Torah She'Ba'al Peh, but they wanted the bottom line of the Torah She'Ba'al Peh. They didn't want to break the head and the back and forth of the Gemara and the Mishnah. Anyone that learned Gemara knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's not easy. It's very difficult. And how many tangents and how many things are not so practical on the page. Give me the bottom line. That's what we were ready to accept. But God says, no can do. And He forced us in a way, He coerced us to accept even the Torah She'Ba'al Peh in its difficult form. And so this is what it means, Behukotay telechu. This is what it means, a chok. Of course, Torah is rational, but even the difficulty, the toiling, that's not so logical. Yes, education, we all understand. Every school has education. Every school, they teach their kids. But you don't necessarily see the kids breaking their heads to understand what the teacher's saying. To the contrary, a teacher's job is to make it as easy as possible for the students to swallow. So rationally speaking, Torah is meant to be, education should be something that flows smoothly. And God says, Behukotay telechu. The chok is that I want you to go hard and dig deep. Not even not easy. And so we need to ask ourselves, are we amel in the Torah? Are we working hard to understand the Torah? Now, why is that so important? Why is it important to Hashem that we work hard? Is he just trying to annoy us? Is he just trying to, be a inconvenience, a nuisance? God, come on, give us easy halakha. Give us the Torah, simple form. What are you making us work for it? Just to bust us, you know what I mean? But the answer is, says Rabbi Dessler, such an important yesod. And he says that in life, the more you invest in something, the more you start to love that something. There's no way you love something if you didn't invest. The harder you work, the more you love it. This is his famous line that the word for love in Hebrew, ahava, comes from the word hav. Hav means to give. Tavili, lehavi, to give. And Rav Dessler says, and we quoted this so many times in the past, Rav Dessler says, when you start giving, when you start investing, you will start loving. Because really, ultimately, I want to tell you a secret over here. Ultimately in life, you'll never love anyone but yourself. Know that. Okay? The pasuk doesn't say ve'ahavta et re'acha kamocha. It says ve'ahavta le're'acha kamocha. It means love towards your fellow. The Torah will never command you to love your fellow. That's impossible. I can never really love anyone like me. Ultimately, we're all selfish. We all only love ourselves. The Torah wants us, though, to love other people. How do I get there? The real answer is, when I invest into someone, when I start doing for someone, I could give them a loan, I could give them a job, I could advertise for them, I could push them to succeed, I could give them advice. So now I've invested a piece of me into them. And what do I love? I love the me that's in them. That's really what I love. It's really a selfish love. I don't love them. I love the piece of me that's invested in that person. But that's enough. And therefore, the more we give towards someone, and you'll see this to be factual, when we were dating, we loved our spouse, our fiance. And something happens after we get married, that all of a sudden the love is gone. You wonder, where did the love go? I don't know, Rabbi, the spark's gone. What happened is very simple. When you were engaged, you gave and gave and gave and gave. And therefore, because you gave, you loved, you loved, you loved, you loved. Says Rabbi Dessler, most people think that because you love someone, you give them. But the opposite is also true. Because you give, you start to love. If there's someone that you don't like, I'm not talking about someone that owes you money. I'm talking about, sometimes we're just jealous. It could be a family member. It could be envy because we're upset that someone else got better treatment than us. Maybe we're jealous of a coworker that's making better sales than we are. Maybe we're scared of the competition. We're a little bit annoyed at somebody else. But we don't have a really good reason. They didn't hurt us. They didn't steal from us. Right? So in those cases, the pasuk says, "Lo tisna achim," not that I hate someone. Rabbi, how do I get rid of that hatred? I don't like them. I'm jealous of them. I hate their existence just because they're so good at what they do, and I can't be good if they're good. Not allowed to do that. So says Rav Dessler, you want to start liking somebody, invest into them. Not only money, you could invest money, but it could also be time. Give them advice, help them out, invite them out for a dinner. You see how quickly, magic, it's like magic. Look how quickly you'll see the hatred start to leave. All of a sudden, you'll start to like that person. You invite them to your house, you're having a party, bring them over. Invest into them. You'll see part of you in them. the more you invest into, this is not only true with someone, by the way, this is true with some things. There are projects. When we invest into a project, you'll start loving that project. The Gemara says it best. Rotze Adam bekav shelo, a person would rather one of their own than 9 of someone else's. You know why? Because when it's yours, you worked hard, you own it. When you own it, when you invest into something, it's your project. You know who loves projects the most? You know when there's like a Chinese auction, or if there's a bake sale, or if there's a event going on, you know who loves it the most? The one that put in the most time to prepare for it. You know who loves shul the most? The rabbi, the chazan, the gabbai, because they're putting time and energy. You come to shul and you're observing, and you're watching, and you're a spectator, and you sit back, and you're eating seed, listening to the rabbi speak, and you're walking in when they're up to already nishmat on Shabbat, and you open up a quick Baruch She'amar, and you know exactly what paragraphs to skip to catch up in time. You got it down to a science, and then you're in there for 10 minutes, and you go back out for the coffee. You're not going to maybe like prayer so much. If there's something that you would like to start enjoying more, you have to start doing more. You have to start investing more. It's interesting, but often we think that the easier it is, the better it is. It's not true. Says the Torah, Shetiyu amelim. We got to work hard. And if we work hard, we'll start liking it. A lot of times the guy will come and say, Rabbi, I'm not enjoying Judaism. And many times the quick answer that the rabbi's head will go to is you'll start making it easier on this Jew. Let's cut away some mitzvot here. Maybe we could be lenient on the kosher over there. Maybe you don't really have to keep Shabbat this much. We accommodate. My friends, look at the Reform. Look at how much the rabbis are accommodating for the Reform congregants. Do you think they love Judaism more than the Orthodox? No, sir. The more you work, the more you love. So actually, it's counterintuitive. But if someone doesn't enjoy being Jewish, the real answer is they have to work harder on their Judaism, not easier. You know who grows the most religiously? The guy that's sitting there learning Gemara every morning at 6:30. He's breaking his head. He's working hard to understand it. That guy is growing more than the other guy who has it easier, wakes up at 8 o'clock, rolls out of bed into minyan, has a nice quick breakfast. You work harder, you're going to like it more. It's just a fact of life. And so we have to ask ourselves, are we investing into our religion? Because we all know the feeling of making that cake. You ever made a cake? I don't make cakes, but once in a while I have to make a cake. As a kid I used to make cakes. The quick Duncan Hines, right? Remember that? I have that one down. 3 eggs, 1/3 oil, 1/4 water, right? I know by heart already. You take the powder, you put the eggs, you put the oil, you mix it in. Oven, depends if it's a 9x11, 23 minutes. If it's a bunt, it's 18 minutes, right? I got the whole back of the thing. I got it memorized. Okay? Let me tell you something. It could be a simple, thank you. It could be a simple Duncan Hines cake. Comes out. Wow. Guys, you gotta taste. No, I'm telling you, you never tasted cake like this in your lives. This is the best cake you ever had. Forget all the fancy ones you spent $35 for. This is a cake. This is a cake, right? Why? Because I made it. And I don't love the cake. I love the effort that I put into it. The sweat, the tears. Hazore'im bedim'ah berenah yuktoru, the pasuk says. If you plant with hard work, then berenah yuktoru. Then you're gonna harvest and you're gonna love it. But if you just sat there, you know who cries the most at the NBA finals? The captain of the team, the starter. The guys on the bench that barely played the whole season, yeah, he's happy. But he knows deep down, he didn't work hard for this. It's not his trophy. If you're an injured player, okay, you get a ring. You get a ring because you're on the team. Osmosis, so he gave you a ring. But you didn't really deserve this. You didn't work hard for it. The enjoyment's not there. If you're a player, it's more. If you're watching, if you're a fan, it's even less. The more you invest into your team, you buy the merch, you buy the jersey, you watch every game, you follow them. You're going to enjoy that championship much more than a guy who watched just the playoffs and the finals. So we have to realize that if we want to find happiness, if we want to fall in love with our religion, the answer is to put more time. The answer is to work harder, not easier. I know it doesn't make sense really, but when you think about it, you realize how true it is. Because ahava comes, love comes from ahav, from giving, from sacrificing. Think about the greatest love that exists in the world. The greatest love is the love that we have for food. No, I'm kidding. It's the love that we have for our children. Right? Our children, what do we love more than them? And yet, is there anyone that we give more than to our children? Do we give more than anyone in the world than our children? We give them everything. It's not a coincidence that that's why we love them. There are two loves really that exist with a parent to a child. The first love is a natural love that exists when they're born. But there's a deeper love that is developed over time by giving and giving and giving. When I sit down and I make my breakfast and I scrambled the eggs myself and I cut the vegetables and I put in the bagel in the toaster and I sit down, oh, this is a meal. It doesn't taste as good as a professional chef who makes me, but this is much better. Why? Because I worked hard on it. Right? When you work for something in life, you need to remember, the harder you work, the more joy there will be when it comes time to reap, when it comes time to harvest. We can't come, my friends, into synagogue once a week and expect others to do the work for us and then to leave with a high of tefillah. If we're not enjoying tefillah, it's because we're not doing enough effort in tefillah. You want to start liking prayers? Go out and buy yourself a commentary on the Siddur. Spend money. Spend time going to the store. Don't Amazon Prime it. Go to the store and get it. Today, go out of your way. Read a paragraph. Take notes. You want to enjoy events in the synagogue? Participate in the events in the synagogue. Call your local synagogue up. How can I get involved? What can I do? Because the more skin you have in the game, the more you'll love it. If I'm a rabbi and I want to make events, there's two ways I could do it. I can make events and do all the work myself, but then I'm the only one that really has investment. If I'm wise, I create a host committee. I allocate, I distribute. You six, you're the host committee. Figure out the events, figure out the when, the where, the budgeting. You collect the money, you do all the work. Now these 6 people, now they love it because they're investing. It's their baby, it's their project. And this is not only true, my friends, as a rabbi in religion. This is true as a businessman. I'm sure you businessmen know this. You know that in business, if you want to get your employees on your program, if you want to get them to do what you want to do, you got to motivate them. You can't just tell them, do it, because they're going to waste their time watching videos, hanging around by the coffee room. You want to get your employees to be as invested as you are. You got to get them to do. You got to create a motivation for them. And the more investment, the more they're going to love it. There's a beautiful line I once saw that if you're a captain of a ship and you want to get your men to sail with you out into the dangerous seas, don't tell them to grab the oars and the sails, but teach them about the vast riches that lie waiting for them out there in the ocean. And on their own, they're going to want to come and grab the sails and the oars. They're going to pull you. They're going to pull us. So part of being a successful CEO is figuring out, how do I get my employees to buy in? Because now it's their idea. Now it's there. And it takes a lot of chokhmah. If it's your idea, you ready for this? I'll tell you something simple. If you have a good idea as a CEO, if it's your idea, they'll never do it. If you're wise, you make it their idea. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie Inception. Inception, very interesting movie. But basically, when you wanted to get a guy to do something, you had to plant the idea in his head in a dream. And then he wakes up and he thinks it's his idea, and then he starts doing it. So kind of life is like that, figuring out how to plant an idea in someone's head. But then he wakes up and he says, oh, it's my idea. So as an example, if you want to get your kids to go to shul, if you want to get your kid to stop bothering their sibling, what do you do? So you have to figure out. You have to sit him down and say, so what do you think? This family, you're the oldest. How do you think your brother's treating your sister? What do you think we could do to make it his idea? Yeah, I think we should work on sticker charts every time we speak respect. So now the chart's his idea. Figure it out to get it from him. Don't give him the answer. Fish it out of him. Let him say the answer because now it's his answer. Now he wants to do it. You understand? It's very, very interesting. It's true again, so many areas of life. But if we want to succeed, if we want to love, we need to invest. That's why it's so important. A meaningful relationship requires investing. The less you invest, the less is going to be meaningful. The more we do, the more we love. It's just a fact of life. So this is what it means, Behukotay telecha. I just want to share with you a personal story that really, for me, I would say, was a defining moment in my life. I'm sure we all have those moments that really we could look back and say that's a key moment in my life. So I want to share with you one key moment. It was when I was in yeshiva right after I graduated Flatbush High School. And I went to yeshiva in Israel, one of the best decisions of my life. I went to a yeshiva called Migdash Melech. It was a great place. And I really owe who I am today thanks to them and other places, of course. And I wouldn't be today without this yeshiva. And I remember when I went in, I wasn't there yet. It was very different from where I was used to. I was a Brooklyn kid, community kid, going to, really serious, stark yeshiva, strong. And, it wasn't my style so much. And I remember I was invited in my first month there. I was invited for Chol HaMoed, Sukkot, Shabbat, to Chief Rabbi of Chulon's house, Rav Avraham Yosef, the son of Hachamovadia Yosef. So I remember it was a big deal. My mother is very close to her to Rabbanit Sarah Yosef. So she got me an invite there. They invited me for Shabbat, Chol HaMoed, Sukkot, and I was so excited. Till today I remember the feeling. And I remember, realizing to myself, well, here I am going to this big rabbi's house. I better be prepared if he asks me to say Dvar Torah, if he asks me to say, a speech or something. So I kept my ears open for the few weeks before. If I found a nice thought or a piece or an idea to share on the table, you can't walk in and be unprepared. It looks a little bit not professional. So I wanted to make sure I was prepared. And I remember it was Shabbat Shuvah, the Shabbat right before Yom Kippur, and it was an in Shabbat in the yeshiva. In the yeshivas, you get to go 1 week out to anywhere and then 1 week in. This was an in Shabbat. That means you had to stay in. Of course, it's the most important Shabbat of the year before Yom Kippur. So we were all in the yeshiva. And I remember my rabbi who was in for that Shabbat, Rabbi Klein, he gave a Friday night shiur. A Friday night right before Arbit, in between Mincha and Arbit. He gave a crazy discourse on halachic question of sukkah. You ready? I remember the question even. What's the law if a guy is sitting in the sukkah, but his table's outside of the sukkah? Are we worried that he's going to be drawn outside onto the table and now his head is no longer in the sukkah? Is that kosher or not? That was the question. And I thought it was okay, good question. I thought the answer would be a simple, no, 20, 25 minutes going back and forth, quoting a Mishnah, and then other contradiction on Chav Zayin, and the answer of the Rif, and then the Ran, and Tosfot, and the Rashba, just back and forth. And I was like, oh my God, this is great, like a tennis match. And I said after I'm like, this is what I'm going to speak about. This is my speech. This is what I'm going to share with the rabbi's house. It's perfect. And the whole Shabbat, I sat there trying to memorize it because, I'm going to forget it tomorrow night. I sat there memorizing the whole thing back and forth. I kept reviewing it in my head until Motzei Shabbat. I took a pen and paper, and as I'm about to start taking notes and making sure I put it down to remember it, And I was so excited to be able to memorize this speech. My friends came to me and they gave me the worst news possible. They said to me, let's go, Miz, we're going to Tel Aviv for the night. We're going to spend the night in Tel Aviv. We got cheap hotel. We're going to have a great day tomorrow at the beach. I'm like, no. You can't go to Tel Aviv. I got to memorize this. I got to write notes. Come on, guys, go tomorrow night. Wait for me. They're like, no, we're going tonight. And I was so upset. I had to make a big decision. Do I go with my friends or do I stay back? And for me, this was a key moment, one of my key moments in life. And I decided to stay back, and I told them, all right, guys, go on without me. And they went out, they took the hookah, the sheshbesh, the seeds, the beers, they went out, and I was so jealous. Okay. And I remember sitting there the whole day, Sunday, working on this speech that I'm going to give, that I don't even know I'm going to give it. But I'm working on this Dvar Torah that I'm going to say over at this, chief rabbi of Chulon's house. And I remember really working on it. Writing down the Mishnah, looking it up. Wait, what page was it? Read it in English, understood it. I wrote it down, summarized it. Then I read the Gemara, understood it, wrote it down. Then wait, what did he quote? What page was the other Gemara? And I would walk over to other kids. And the Beit Midrash was filled with kids, but not like my type of kids. They were much more religious than I at the time. And I would ask them, do you remember the speech that the rabbi said? What was the point that he was trying to bring out? And he said, oh yeah, he was saying this. And I was, oh yeah. I would go back and write it in my notes. And then I would open up the reef and and I worked so hard on this, perfecting it. Finally, Sunday night, I had my notes. And I stared at this masterpiece. It was, for me, a piece of art. It was heaven. It was beautiful. And I remember my friends. This was the cherry on top. When my friends came back, they're like, "Oh, you missed it. We had a great time." I had zero FOMO. I could care less. I was zero jealous. Because I knew I struck gold. I knew I found something that was beautiful. The joy that I experienced when I finished this essay, it was a different level of joy that I never experienced in my life. And I was a regular community mainstream kid. But this was different. This was different than the parties. This was different from the drinks. This was different. And I remember that joy. I didn't even care that my friends were doing something else. And for me, this was a big moment. I realized at that moment that this is something deep. And when I went to the rabbi's house, just to tell you the ending of the story, I went to the rabbi's house for Chol HaMoed, Sukkot, Shabbat, and I got my notes in my pocket. And I'm waiting for him to invite me to speak. And I'm like, you better ask me to speak, man, Do you know how hard I worked on this speech? And I'm waiting, and they serve, the kiddush, nothing doing. They serve the soup, nothing doing. They serve the fish, nothing doing. And finally, by the main course, the rabbi says a Dvar Torah, and then he says, all right, Rav Mizrahi, he called me with respect, just to make me feel good. He says, Bechavod, do you have anything that you heard? What are you learning in yeshiva? I'm like, how you doing? I pulled out my notes. Have a seat, everybody. Sit back and get ready to enjoy the craziest speech of your life. I'm going to share with you. And I said, okay, well, the Mishnah says in Masechet Sukkah, Daf Gimel, and he says, yeah, it's the machloket between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. I'm like, yeah. I guess you knew that one, right? Okay. Of course, you're a rabbi. You should know the Mishnah on Daf Gimel. Okay, but did you know that there's a contradiction with another Gemara on Daf Chav Zayin? He goes, yeah, but the Reef answers the contradiction. I'm like, oh my God, you wanted to say the speech, man, Finally, eventually, he realized that he was ruining my speech, so he shut his mouth. He stopped ruining it for me. But really, I mean, some people would get a little bit turned off from that, you know. For me, it was the opposite. It worked. It got me more inspired. I realized, like, wow, if I work so hard and this guy knew it like this, imagine how much more there is. But for me, this was a huge moment in life, really. And why? It was because I invested. If I just sat back listening to the speech, it would have been one level. But I don't know, I would be here maybe today. I don't know that I would be as committed I wouldn't be as turned on to the learning as I was. What got me there was because I invested and I sweat and I broke my hand and I sacrificed. I gave up something. I gave up a nice trip, fun weekend. I gave it all up. When you sacrifice, you will start to love. So what is it that you want to start loving? Ask yourself that question, my friends. Do you want to start loving your spouse? Do you want to start loving your religion more? You want to start enjoying tefillah more? You want to start enjoying learning more? I'm going to tell you something. It sounds, again, counterintuitive. But if you want to enjoy it, so start working harder. If you're not enjoying it, it's because it's too easy. It's got to be difficult. Tiyu amelim b'Torah. But I promise you, you're going to see dividends, my friends. You're going to see the joy. You're going to see the zore'im bedim'ah, when you plant with tears. You're going to sing, and the more tears, the more singing that comes. The harder you work, the greater the joy. It's just a simple equation. The more you put in, the more you're going to take out. So, I think this is a very powerful idea now, Parasha. We should be zocher, all of us, lihiyot amelim b'Torah. And we should be able to work hard in Torah, to work hard in our relationships, and then we will realize that we have developed something with true meaning and true beauty. We'll stop over here, everybody. Have a wonderful day. God willing, we'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.